guys, welcome to another one of my YouTube videos. In today's video, I will be listing the top 20 most haunted places in Gloucestershire. Number 20 is Dreambrook Avenue. In 1970, in a private house, a 6-year-old boy was witnessed to be by an open window which was previously nailed shut. The boy is said to have been saying, "The lady wants me to go to her." There also is a woman who sits under the entrance to the attic, asking people to pray for her. Number 19 is HM Prison in Gloucester. There is a ghost called Jenny. She was murdered in the 15th century on the ground where the prison now stands. She roams searching for her murderer. In 1969, inmates had a séance in cell 25 of the A-Wing. They tried to communicate with Jenny. They had books and flower pots thrown around the cell. Jenny's disembodied hand appeared to a convict in cell 25 and pointed directly at him, and suddenly disappeared as quick as it appeared. That made cell 25 the most haunted place in the 200-year-old building. After C-Ring was built in the 1970s, staff and prisoners have reported paranormal activity. They heard knocks and banging as well as slamming doors and seeing shadowy figures. A skeptical prison guard got locked in the cell. Normally this isn't that unusual, but the cell door did not have a lock. The ghost of a woman prisoner who was held at nearby Gloucester Abbey roams the halls, terrorising prisoners. Here is a shocking fact. Between 1792 and 1864, over 100 men were hanged while a prison guard watched out of his office window. The executed prisoners were buried in unmarked graves in the prison grounds. Number 18 is Dick Whittington Pub. There have been several reports of a hunched figure which has been witnessed wandering the cellar. That caused multiple people to ring the paranormal investigators. Orbs have been seen by witnesses floating around the bar. Poltergeists have been reported to rearrange furniture during night time. The ghostly apparition of a man wearing a flat cap caused several workmen to flee from the building. A deceased regular customer still likes his tipple and makes this known by moving alcohol bottles off the shelves. Also, one of the many victims of the plague haunts the downstairs bar. Number 17 is Charfield Graveyard. There was a train crash on the 13th of October in 1928. The train went through a red signal in a thick fog. Gas cylinders which were used to light carriages caught fire. That made it difficult to identify the bodies. 15 were killed. 23 were badly injured, and 2 bodies are left unidentified. Since then, there have been sightings of 2 lonely and lost railway children holding hands near the crash site. Number 16 is Little Dean Hall. This hall has possibly over 16 ghosts since being built back in Anglo-Saxon times. The spirits include 2 royalists, Colonel Congrove and Captain Wigmore, who were killed in the dining room. Since that day, there has been a bloodstain that keeps appearing on the floor even though it is years after. There is a ghost called the Black Boy, who was a black servant who killed his master in the hall. He haunts the scene of the crime wearing a silver collar and carries a lit candle. A white monk is seen at the bottom of the stairs by an area where there is a small chapel hidden behind the panelling. 2 brothers shot each other during a duel and they are seen to walk at night. A phantom figure is seen sometimes walking the ground. Visitors have reported to suffer from attacks of dizziness, nausea and heart palpitations. Number 15 is Ye Old Black Bear. It dates back to 1309. A headless figure is known to stroll down the corridors, dragging chains behind him. Since the figure is headless, that makes it impossible to identify him. But looking at what he's wearing, the clothing dates back to the 14th century. He could possibly be a Lancastrian who was defeated by the Yorkists at the Battle of Tewkesbury. Number 14 is Chavernage House. There is a legend of Chavernage. The legend goes like this. Colonel Stephen's daughter cursed him and all his successors in a fit of rage. Colonel Stevens was ill and succumbed to his illness and passed away. He had a very dramatic entrance into the afterlife. 4 phantom horse and coach turned up outside the house. The colonel's ghost rose up from his bed and glided out the room, down the stairs and out the main entrance. Onlookers witnessed the driver, which was headless, wearing royal clothing with a star that belonged to the Order of the Garter. The horse and coach went out the gate and disappeared into flames. Number 13 is Blackfriars Priory. Built in 1239, it's one of the oldest surviving medieval Dominican priories in Britain. In the last 10 years, there have been restorations which have found dungeons. The spirit of the bleeding prior has been seen running down the corridors with a serious head injury. It is unknown whether he died as a result of his wound. The more well-known ghost is that of a monk who is blamed for locking doors normally left open. Also, there has been a mass burial found on site. Number 12 is Snows Hill Manor. There is a Benedictine monk which haunts the lane that runs along the manor. The spirit appears as a shadowy hooded form that could possibly be connected to the manor, which used to belong to Richcombe Abbey. Some villagers refuse to walk the lane after nightfall. There is a monk which haunts the kitchen. It could quite possibly be the same monk. Guests describe the monk as being powerfully built who scowls at visitors. That is probably due to the fact that the religious connection to the building being lost in time. He is also seen standing on the stairs leading to Anne's room. There is a young girl in green which haunts Anne's room. The spirit could be Anne Parsons. The story goes that at the age of 16, Anne secretly eloped with her lover Anthony Palmer. They get married at midnight at Snows Hill Manor in this very room. Her guardian John Warren grabs her. Anthony does not give up on his true love and rescues her from John. Anthony gets arrested and charged with abduction and planning to cause an unlawful marriage. The case later was tried by the secret Star Chamber. The final decision is still unclear. The Zenith Room is the highest point of the house, which was the scene of a bloody battle, leaving one person fatally wounded. The duel left a lasting impression. The sound of clashing sounds is heard echoing from within. The next spirit is Charles Marshall, who died in 1858. When Richard Carter made his way back home, he was unaware of an approaching horse and rider. The unknown rider is none other than Charles. He was sat on the black horse. Carter, terrified, tried to gallop away, but unknown to him, Charles was in pursuit. Carter confronts the spirit of Charles and gets it told to meet him at a farm building. Carter rendezvous with him, and Marshall gave him a message that only him and his wife would understand. The note was said to contain the whereabouts of a hidden stash of money which was hidden by Charles. Carter never saw the apparition of Charles again. However, National Trust staff claimed to see a gentleman that could be Charles. Several National Trust guys report hearing footsteps in unoccupied rooms. They could belong to Charles Paget Wade as he made his rounds admiring his collection. Number 11 is Studley Castle. There is a lady in green which is assumed to be the spirit of Catherine Parr, who died during childbirth in 1548 and is buried on the castle grounds. Catherine's ghost is said to be seen wandering the corridors and around the nursery, followed by a faint apple perfume accompanied by upsetting sobs of a crying child. There is a ghost of a Victorian housekeeper called Janet from the 19th century. She took her job very seriously. Whenever the housemaids went to bed, she would sit at the top of the stairs which led to the sleeping quarters. Janet would be armed with a feather duster, ready to fend off infatuated men servants trying to get their way with the housemaids. Safe to say they were unsuccessful. A teenage girl wandered away from her tour group as she came face to face with a spectral housekeeper on the upstairs landing. The girl became hysterical when she got a feather duster waved at her as if Janet was telling her off. Number 10 is Café Rene. It was refurbished in 1988 to be the Blackfriars pub. 2 workers stayed overnight. They had some paranormal experiences. They witnessed flashing lights, doors banging, a chair floating. Also, their electric razor was turned on even though it wasn't plugged in. The last straw was when they had a wheelbarrow thrown at them, which caused the builders to sleep the rest of their night in their work van. One of the previous employees, called Gemma, entered a room and saw shadow feet under her door. She assumed it was another employee, so she waited for someone to walk in, but no one ever did. There was an empty part of the cafe. The door handle shook. That caused Gemma to flee. When people did multiple investigations, there was some evidence recorded. A little girl has been heard on multiple occasions talking. Also, a disembodied hand is known to knock, and it's heard by people. The spirits use electronic energy to make them become stronger. That has caused multiple camera batteries to drain. In the cellar, during a seance, 3 people were victim to a spirit who pushed their chest. As soon as the seance finished, the victims felt as if nothing happened. Disembodied voices are heard, some people think saying, "She's coming, Victor," and "She's here," in the cellar. Number 9 is Ragged Cot Inn in Minchinhampton. In 1760, the ex-landlord of the inn, Bill Clavers, robbed a midnight stagecoach travelling to London. He got drunk on rum and was armed with 2 pistols and stumbled to the stagecoach. His wife, with their child in her arms, tried to prevent him from robbing the coach. Bill wasn't having it, so he pushed her aside by him. What Bill didn't realise was there were steps by his wife and child. That caused his wife and child to fall down the steps to their deaths. After robbing the stagecoach, he arrived back at the hotel. What he saw was a deceased body of his wife and child at the bottom of the stairs. Panicked, he hid the bodies in a trunk. The police arrived after following the footsteps in the snow of Bill Clavers. The police saw the apparition of Bill's wife and child at the top of the stairs. They went away when night came on them. The police came back in the morning and found the bodies back at the bottom of the stairs. Clavers was found guilty at trial and sentenced to death by hanging. Number 8 is the Old Bell. There isn't much written about the spirits of this place. The only thing written is there is a ghost called Elsie who rearranges the cutlery. Also, there is a poltergeist that throws soap in the men's toilets. It is said that men come in pairs for this very reason. I guess that's another reason, that's another way of saying don't drop the soap. There is a function room which has wall panels which are sometimes described as being red hot. Number 7 is Tudor House Hotel. This was built in the 16th century. The more accurate year is 1540. The most common sighting is that of a grey lady. There is also a woman in white. They could possibly be the same person. The grey lady is walking the corridors and vanishing by the door. It is most likely the spirit of a maid who was extremely mistreated by her mistress. The maid was believed to have become severely depressed and committed suicide by leaping out of a top floor window and plunged into the garden below. A black Labrador has been seen sitting at the top of the main staircase. The spirit of a small drummer boy wakes up guests at midnight by the loud sounds of his kettle drum. Number 16 is St. Brivel's Castle. In the solar room, there is often a sound that can only be described as a baby crying. When renovation was done to this room, a wrapped-up corpse of a deceased baby fell from the rafters. Onto the castle keep. An apparition of a man in a full suit of armour can be seen in the moonlight. As soon as the moonlight hits the metal, the apparition disappears. Would you believe that a room with the name of the hanging room is haunted? Strange sounds have been heard in the hanging room, such as marbles being dropped, humming and scuttling. A dark masked figure has been seen standing in the doorway. People have been violently pushed. The prison has been home to poltergeist activity. Furniture has been moved. Voices and footsteps are often heard. Victims have been grabbed by unseen arms. The most frequent activity is the sound of growling, which could possibly be a demon. Now on to the chaplain's room. People have been trapped in rooms due to dark figures blocking off exits. They also have had a sensation of being touched where no one else is in the room. Beds have been moved in this room as well, and people have witnessed a dent on the bed as if someone was sitting on it. In the constable's room, people have complained about lightheadedness and the feeling of being strangled. Unexplained rustling noises and putrid smells have been experienced here. The door swings violently without explanation, and beds are said to have vibrate. The porter's lodge has a story from a gentleman who stays there. The gentleman reported the feeling of being pinned down on the bed and being unable to move. It may be something paranormal, or it could simply be sleep paralysis. A misty dark shadow has been witnessed standing by the doorway and the fireplace. There have been some unusual sounds in that room, such as strange dragon sounds and noise and children crying. The oubliette, I see that's how I pronounce it, contains what guests call the scary bed. Guests have been awoken by what could possibly be an angry spirit. The spirit doesn't like people lying in the bed. The spirit shows this by violently tugging on the bedsheet. Some guests have reported being awoken by the disembodied screams. One of the oldest remaining parts of the castle is probably one of the most haunted parts. The state apartment is split into individual areas, including Isabel's room and a long corridor. Footsteps are heard on the sides of the beds. The sound of curtains being closed is also heard. even though the curtains are already closed prior to the sound. In the corridor, the sounds of footsteps are heard as well as the sounds of scratching coming from the walls and doors. There is the spirit of a little girl which seems to be the most likely cause of the sounds. The apparition of the girl is seen down the corridor wearing a white dress. A guest has witnessed a little girl disappear through a wall. There was possibly an old door there which has since been blocked off. A dark, shadowy entity has been seen walking across multiple rooms. Violins have been heard to play when no violinists are nearby or even at the place. Also, disembodied voices have been heard arguing. Number 5 is the famous ancient ram inn at Wootton under Edge. The ancient ram inn appeared on Ghost Adventures and Most Haunted. It has up to 20 spirits. In 1145, the inn was built on a pagan burial ground where children's sacrifices were done. Some guests have been pushed down on the bed by what is known as an incubus. The place is also haunted by a murdered young girl called Rosie and a high priestess. The most haunted room in the inn is the bishop's room. Miss Humphreys heard crying coming from one of the bedrooms, which she believed the cause of this to be the spirits of the murdered children. Due to her thinking this being the case, she filled one of the rooms full of toys. Since she put the toys in the room, the disembodied crying has quietened down. John Humphreys was pulled out of his bed the first time he stayed overnight. John Humphreys has since passed away. Number 4 is the Morton case in Cheltenham. Another name of this spirit causing this haunting is the Real Woman in Black. This was a Victorian-era haunting. The haunting happened from 1882 to 1889. A woman in widow's clothing was seen by some of the Despard family, their servants, and even a neighbour. The spirit is often seen during daylight for an extended amount of time. This haunting could quite possibly be a stone tape theory haunting due to a pattern in the routine. She wanders down the second floor hallway, down the stairwell leading to the ground floor. Then she proceeds to the drawing room, and a while later she exits the drawing room, and then goes into the garden, then vanishes. The spirit is thought to be the late Imogen Swinhoe. She died in 1878. Not only did the person investigating this case point out the picture of Imogen, her family also informed the investigator her favourite room was a drawing room. The third on our list is Berkeley Castle. King Edward II was possibly murdered by his estranged wife and her lover. There have been disputes of his cause of death. It was either red-hot pokers up his rectum which burnt him from the inside out, or he was smothered. The reason for this debate was the fact he had no external marks to help determine how he was killed. His screams are heard throughout the castle on the anniversary of his death. Another haunted room in the castle is the morning room. It was a chapel before it was converted in the early 19th century. A hooded figure has been seen on multiple times walking to where the old vectory once stood. The spirit of a little girl has been felt holding hands with visitors leaving the morning room. The Great Hall is haunted by a shadowy figure which has been seen climbing up the stairs to the next floor. A court jester was thought to have fallen to his death from the next level. It's this reason why the shadowy figure is thought to be him. Number 2 on our list is Woodchester Mansion. One of the earliest ghost sightings is that of the first Earl of Duchy. He was seen in 1840 at the grand party his son, the second Earl of Duchy, was hosting. The party was to celebrate him becoming an Earl. Just as he was about to sit down, his dad appeared to sit in his seat at the head of the table. That caused the second Earl of Duchy to run out of the mansion and never to return. In 1868, tradesmen left their tools behind after completing the repair of the mansion's clock tower and roof due to paranormal activity. Prior to Rochester Mansion being built, stood an old Georgian country home called Spring Park. Sir Rupert de Lansiny killed his own cousin to gain control of the Spring Park estate. Since that day, a phantom horseman has been seen wandering the grounds. This is thought to be de Lansiny after being forced to wander the grounds. A monk committed suicide in the Middle Ages, and since then a phantom coffin has been seen floating by the lake nearby. One of the most disturbing spirits is in the cellar. The spirit could quite possibly be a demon. The name of the spirit is the Ragged Dwarf. It was first witnessed by a local reverend in the year 1903. During World War II, American and Canadian soldiers used the cellar of the mansion to store their equipment. The lakes in Woodchester Park were used to train in preparation for the D-Day landings. Unfortunately, it was during one of those training sessions where one of the bridges collapsed. That caused several soldiers to drown. Their bodies were taken back into the mansion. Even though it's been over 60 years since this incident, 1940s music has been heard echoing throughout the corridors of the mansion. Number 1 is Presbury Village. The most well-known ghost is of a monk who was seen in a black hooded shroud. That's where he gets his nickname, the Black Abbot. He is most commonly seen on Christmas Day, Easter Day, and All Souls Day. And for those who don't know what All Souls Day is, it's a Catholic day of honouring the deceased and praying for their souls. The Black Abbot is seen repeating the same route over and over again, which possibly proves that the ghost is stuck in a time loop, which is also called stone tape theory. The route the monk takes starts in the St. Mary's Church. He then walks through the churchyard, through the grounds of the old priory, then is seen to vanish through a wall of an old cottage on the high street and is heard moving stuff around in there. Another story is of the charging horseman. He is seen riding his white charger. He is known to be seen at Easter at Christmas. His apparition is seen to be galloping across Shaw Green Lane through the Burgage. The horseman was rumoured to have been killed by a Lancastrian on May 4, 1471. He was on his way to the Edward IV camp during the War of the Roses. In the early 20th century, they found a skeleton with an arrowhead lodged in the skull. This is rumoured to be the horseman. That's not the only horseman in Presbury. Horseman story in Presbury, I mean. The next horseman story is of a headless one. He is seen riding his stallion through Mill Street. According to legends, he was a royal dispatcher on his way from Sudley Castle to Gloucester. He was knocked off his horse by a thin wire. He was unfortunately executed by beheading after the interrogation of the Roundheads of Presbury. Sundial Cottage in the Burgage is haunted by a girl who plays a spinet. She used to be seen, but now the only thing left reminding us of her ghost is the faint music playing occasionally. She was heard by a family in World War II who hid there. Visitors of Cleve Corner have been awoken by feeling they are being strangled. This is due to the Phantom Strangler. While he was alive, he strangled a young bride-to-be to rob her jewellery. Hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you're not already, remember to hit the like, and if you're not already, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Peace out.